Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm Julia Cutler, and I'm excited to be joined today with author and leadership development consultant Elayne Fluker. Welcome, Elayne. We're very excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Julia. I'm excited.
Great. I'll give some quick housekeeping information for our audience, and then we'll learn a little bit more about our guest. There'll be time for questions at the end of the presentation, so please click the comments question button below the video to ask your questions throughout the webinar. Also, as a reminder, the recording will be available tomorrow. Now, to properly introduce our guest, Elayne. Elayne Fluker is the author of the book, Get Over, I Got It, in which she uses practical exercises and advice to encourage unapologetically ambitious women to view support as a superpower and not a weakness. The book was a Forbes Book of the Month in 2021 and was featured in Essence Magazine, Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast, Martha Stewart, and more than 30 other media outlets. As a speaker and leadership development consultant, Elayne has facilitated more than 200 dynamic workshops globally for Fortune 500 corporations, organizations, and professionals on effectively asking for support for success, fulfillment, and work-life harmony, as well as creating psychologically safe and supportive cultures within the workplace. She has spoken at H.P., the United Nations, the Women Presidents Organization, National Urban League, LinkedIn, Columbia University, and many more. Elayne is the host of the Support is Sexy podcast, where she has interviewed more than 500 diverse women entrepreneurs. Her podcast reaches listeners in 130 countries and has more than 1 million downloads. Welcome, Elayne. We are very excited to have you here today, and I'm going to let you take it away from here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Hello to everyone. As Julia said, you can ask your questions below. I'm excited to hear from you and talk to you at the end of the presentation. But today we are going to talk about the 5 R's of making an empowered ask. So this is how to confidently achieve success, fulfillment, and peace of mind. All right, so here we go. First of all, as Julia said, I wrote a book called Get Over, I Got It. And I host a podcast called Support is Sexy. You know why? Because I struggled with asking for support so much that I had to figure out what is it? What is the boundary there? What is the limiting belief? What is the block? I wrote a book about it. I have a podcast about it. And now I speak about it because I realized just how much of an adverse, if you will, reaction I had to asking for support. I didn't realize how much it was holding me back in my life. Asking for it, I should correct myself, asking for it and accepting it. Because sometimes we don't even have to ask for support, right? Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's directly offered to us, and we still have trouble accepting the support. And what I found through my research of interviewing more than 500 women entrepreneurs all around the world, talking to them about their business and how support has played a role in their life and in their success, and then also writing my book, which came out last year in May, and talking to some of those women who are on my podcast and others. So I believe the book includes 20, maybe 16 or 20 or so interviews with women or conversations with more women about this idea of support. And men struggle with it too. It might be different, but men struggle with it as well. What I found out, there are usually 3 reasons most of us struggle with accepting support. And one of the reasons is we're defensive. So we believe that accepting support signals weakness or incompetence. So think about in a work setting, you might be afraid to say, I'm not sure about this project. I need some help here. Or if someone offers you some help, you might be like, no, I got it. That's why it's called Get Over, I Got It, right? I got it syndrome. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So you're defensive. You don't want anyone to think that you don't know what you're doing, or you're weak, or you're incompetent, or you don't have this handled, that you don't got it. So you're defensive. Another reason might be that you're defiant. So you've reached a certain level in your career. You're the VP of so-and-so, the CEO of such and such. You've got this big job or this big position or this big role. I got it, right? It's putting the hand up. Wait, can you see my hand? I got it. Right. So it's the defiant, I got it, pushing it away because you wouldn't dare admit that you need support, even if, again, it's offered. This isn't even asking. This is at least accepting. The third reason I find is that people feel defeated. We feel like we're so always the one who's the go-to person who supports everybody else, right? We struggle to accept support for ourselves. We can give it freely and generously. I'm that person sometimes. Give it, but then struggle or not even aware when I'm not accepting it for myself. So defensive, defiant, and defeated. are usually the reasons that we struggle with asking for support. And we can fluctuate between those three different ways, depending on the circumstance. But I'm mentioning this just so you can be aware of when you might be saying, I got it, when support comes your way. Now, what this leads to, as I mentioned, is I got it syndrome. And you see our two folks here running away from support. That's what that illustration is. So, how I define I got it syndrome is it happens whenever someone offers you support and your first response, without even thinking about it, is I got it. So, one of the examples I mentioned in the book is at the grocery store here in Atlanta. Go to the grocery store and there's lovely people there who are supposed to help you take your bags to the car. It is literally their job to help you take your bags to the car and unload them when you have a lot of groceries when you're in the store. I trigger response. I got it. It's okay. I got it. Ma'am, can I help you? I got it. I don't even think about it. And I remember one day pausing for a second, pausing for a second and saying, you know what? Thank you. And the young man and I had a wonderful conversation as he walked with me to the car, helped me put my groceries in. Now, did I need that support? Maybe not. Did I need help getting those bags in the car? Maybe not. But one, it was his job to do so. He was happy to do so. We had a great conversation. There was a little bit of a connection there. And I allowed myself to receive support. I put myself in that position. I got out of I got it syndrome and just opened up to support. So it doesn't always have to be a grand statement or a grand moment of this huge example or grand gesture, I should say, of support. You never know when these moments will come up. But if you get into the practice of accepting, that's how it becomes easier when it is the big thing for work or in other settings, even in your personal life. So we want you to get over I got it syndrome. So think about it. How often have you said I got it without even thinking? Now, if I could hear you all or see you raise your hands, I would ask you to do that right now. And if you're honest, I'm sure there's been a time, there might even been a time today, right? We're into the day here, at least here in Georgia, it's 12 p.m. I don't know what time it is where you are, but have you said I got it without thinking about it recently? Be more aware when you say it and be more aware of pausing before you say it. That's the thing I think is a big deal for a lot of us. We say, I got it without even thinking about it. Like, you know what, I think I could use some help with that. Or yeah, I think I do want to talk about that. And I'll give some more examples of that as we go along. So the cure for I got it syndrome, at least as I see it, remember to ask for help. And that's H.E.L.P. So I have a framework that I use the acronym HELP in order to help you remember when to ask for support and how to ask for support. So the H is having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. Sometimes in our society, certainly with social media, I'm not a social media hater. I love social media, always on LinkedIn. You could find me there. However, I do believe we've had a lot of newfound pressure put on many of us, some of it is self-inflicted for sure, this idea that it doesn't count if I don't do it all by myself, right? But that is not true. Having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. Oprah Winfrey talks about how important Gail, her best friend, we all know, is in her life. Sarah Blakely, who's the founder of Spanx, talks about all the people who supported her along the way. And of course, everyone's not going to be there for you. Everyone's not necessarily going to be open to supporting you. Everyone's not even going to be able to support you. There are a lot of reasons. Still, I want you to know that having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. You don't have anything to prove by doing everything alone, all by yourself. And even if you're a person that says, it's easier if I do it by myself, I don't know if that's true. Is that true or is that a belief? Do you just want to do it by yourself so you don't have to interact with anyone else? Or is it true that it's easier for you to do it alone? And even still, having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. The E, make empowered asks. And that's what we're going to talk about today, what I define an empowered ask as we move along. But making empowered asks, so asking for support or accepting support doesn't make you weak, as I said earlier, right? You're doing this from a place of confidence, from a place of building your vision, from a place of planning your career, for a place of strengthening your relationship. Support doesn't have to come to you only when you're in a place of weakness. I grew up in Long Island, New York. I'm a New Yorker. I grew up in New York, and my parents, who are still with me, thank God, they're both 92 here in Georgia. It's the reason I moved here. They are the most generous people I know. Hands down, I'll fight anybody about it. They are the most generous people I know. And I say that because all throughout my childhood and even stories before my childhood, I've heard about how my parents took care of everybody in our family. So they literally came to live with us or came to live with my parents and then moved on to other places. And whether that was they're moving from someplace and coming there, or there are other problems, in the world, there's all kind of things that happen in our lives, breakups of relationships, abuse, drug addiction, just lifing, right? My parents are those people who would take in folks as they moved along. What I realized later in life through therapy and a lot of work, personal work, I associated support with tragic situations or being a victim or always needing help, not even needing help. Needing help is okay. Neediness. That's what I related support to. So I realized I had to change my belief around that and realize, no, asking for and accepting support can be done from an empowered place. So we'll talk more about that, but that's the E. Let go of the how and live the question is the L. Letting go of the how is sometimes we don't ask for support because we're trying to think of all the steps ahead, right? How is this going to work out? What is this going to look like? How can this person really help me? I don't really know if they can help me. You're going through all the checklists and you don't even know what the checklist is, right? If you let go of the how and just live the question, be open to the possibility, which we'll talk about with the P, you never know how it's going to work out. And live the question is something that happened or came to me, I should say, when I did a podcast interview. It was episode 26, I believe, of the Supported Sexy podcast. Now, I always say I have no favorites. There are no favorite babies here. I love all 500 plus women I've interviewed, and I've done at this point, I think 800 or so episodes. Everybody's my favorite. However, Patricia Moreno, who was on episode 26, said something during our interview that has stuck with me for years. I launched a podcast in 2016, so that was many years ago. She said she had to learn how to live the question. So that means being courageous in not knowing. And I know a lot of you either get paid to have the answers or you're a parent and everybody's looking at you. Your kids are looking at you to have the answers, or a partner and you're the one who has the answers. There are a lot of reasons we're used to having or finding the answers. I encourage you with the L to, again, let go of the how and be okay with living the question. This is something I want to create in my life. What might be some ways that I can do this? Who might be some people that I can speak to or connect with? What am I missing? What am I missing is also a powerful question, right? That's not a disempowering question. It's an empowered question. What am I missing? And just let it ride for a little bit. Live the question. Then the P is believe in the possibilities and adopt a possibility mindset. So you can't do the H, E, and the L and not believe in the P, not believe in the possibilities. Possibilities actually is my word for the year for 2020. What year are we in? 2022. Whatever year this is, possibility is my word for this year. Believe in the possibilities and adopt a possibility mindset. And I talk about a possibility mindset in the book, Get Over I Got It, which I learned from Dr. Srini Pillay, who is a teacher or was a professor, at Harvard University, I believe in the psychology department. And he talks about the importance of a possibility mindset. So he says, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not about what's probable, it's about what's possible. Okay, it's not about what's probable, it's about what's possible. And I believe that just opens you up, or it should just even give you the vision of opening you up to the possibility. Because if you're just thinking about what's probable, you're probably focused on the how. You're probably thinking, I have to do it all alone. You're probably thinking that asking is a sign of weakness. But if you open to the possibility, the possibilities are endless. So H.E.L.P. When you're thinking about support, or you're about to say, I got it really quickly before you even think about it, think about H.E.L.P. So today, I want us to focus on making that empowered ask. So focused on the E. The empowered ask, as I define it, is a question confidently communicated to spark curiosity, enlist support, and open the door to possibility. So we're going to talk about the 5 R's of making an empowered ask. Okay, the first one, you got to be ready. And we're going to go through each. I'll tell you more about each one. But ready. Number 2, the reason. Number 3, the receipts. Number 4, the request. And number 5, reciprocity. All right, so number 1, ready. Think about this for a second. When someone asks you, what do you do? Or what do you want to do? Or what are you up to? Or hey, what's new with you? How ready are you with the response that leads to your empowered ask? And remember, that's the question that leads to curiosity and enlists support and creates possibility. How ready are you when someone says, "What do you do?" If I were able to talk to any of you right now, I would say, "Hey, so and so, what do you do?" Right. And that's a question that some people feel uneasy about that question, at networking events when someone says, "What do you do?" But it's not an out of the box question. It's a very simple question, actually. And I believe we feel uncomfortable with it because we don't usually have an answer, right? Or the answer is, "I work in IT." Okay, great. That doesn't spark any curiosity. It's lovely. It's wonderful that you work in IT or whatever department you work in, or accounting, or, business development, or you're just starting out, or you're an intern. I'm an intern at a law firm. Cool. How's that going? As opposed to, "Oh, I work in IT and we're working on this project that fill in the blank." Or, "Hey, I'm an intern. I'm an intern at a law firm, and next summer I'm going to be looking for a full-time position." Okay. "I'm an intern at, let's see, the senator's office, and hope I'm going to go into government, and I'm looking for opportunities for me to be able to contribute to the political scope." I mean, obviously I'm freestyling here, but give me something. How ready are you when people ask you, "What are you doing? What are you up to? What's new with you?" Simple questions. And this isn't just in a business setting. I'm using business examples here, obviously, but even personally, when you're telling your friends and family, etc. Safe spaces. Now, I do want to clarify, safe spaces where you are in a place, a powerful place to say what you're up to. You don't want to say what you're up to any place where you think someone's going to have, I won't even say something negative, but something disempowering to say to you. But we can talk about that another time. Still, I do want you to be courageous and be able to say what you're up to. What are you ready to share that? And I'll give a quick note that I heard actually on a podcast. I can't remember the name of the podcast or the gentleman who's the host. I need to find that out. But he says he was at a party and someone introduced him to Matt Mullenweg. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. Essentially, he's the founder of WordPress. Most of us have heard of WordPress. He says he met this guy and he kind of was a fanboy about it. He really was, excited to meet him. And he said that Matt said to him, "What do you do?" And he said he just fumbled the answer. He doesn't know what he said. I guess he just had brain fog and couldn't answer. You know why? Because he wasn't ready. And he said Matt actually told him, and again, this is just me hearing this from a podcast, so I don't know if this is a true story, but it certainly is a good example. He says that Matt said to him, "You should be able to tell someone what you do in 10 words or less." 10 words or less. I don't know if you all have heard that before. Other people may have said it. This was the first time that I heard it. And I remember challenging myself from then on to be able to say what I did in 10 words or less and having different versions of that. So it's not like I'm going to say everything in the world that I do or 10 words or less, but have these different, depending on your situations or whatever you're doing, or the circumstance, I should say, the circumstance that you're in, or the environment rather. What do you do in 10 words or less? I challenge you all to write that down now, or think about that right now in 10 words or less. And later on, challenge yourself to write. What is it that you want people to know about you? I'll change that a little bit. What is it you want people to know about you in 10 words or less if they say, "What do you do?" Let me see if I could challenge myself here. I help women make empowered ask for support and fulfillment. That could be it, right? I just did that off the top of the head. Or I help individuals. I'll say individuals here for our mixed audience. But in the same way, hey, that's 10 things, those 10 words, excuse me. And that's a way that people can be intrigued by what I do. And that might spark curiosity. Or here's the thing, if it doesn't, at least you've said it. At least you've said that. Don't think, well, this person isn't going to be interested. Say it. Be ready. All right. Our second one is the reason. Well, what's the reason for this empowered ask that you're making? Why does this matter to you? And why does this matter to the world? Now, that might sound like a grand statement, but that world might be, again, your personal life, or that world might be your job. Maybe you're asking for a promotion at work, or maybe you're asking to work remotely now, or maybe you're asking for a change of team and moving to a different department, or maybe you're just starting out and you want to get into the world of finance or entertainment or law or whatever it is. So why does it matter to you, and why does it matter to the world? What are the ways that you can enroll this person in your vision? So essentially help them see what you want to do or what you want to accomplish. What is your reason? So my reason, for example, with supporting women especially, but individuals overall, with making empowered asks, because I believe not asking for support is the reason a lot of us suffer with stress, and anxiety. And there have been a lot of unfortunate things in the news lately about more people committing suicide or even considering suicide. So there's a serious, very serious side to this for me. And as someone who suffered with depression and anxiety when I was younger, and even as a teenager at 15 years old, attempted suicide. Yes, I'm here today and successful today, but I went through a very dark time because I didn't know how to ask for support. I was young and didn't know what I was going through, but I also didn't know how to say something's going on. I feel really alone. I feel really sad. There's a lot going on here. So that's from a personal side. But again, in the career side, I'm saying this is the reason why this matters to me, and this is the reason why this matters to the world. So an example of asking for a promotion, you might say, this is the reason that I want to get this promotion. Let's say it's a promotion. This is the reason I want to get this promotion to a new position. Don't necessarily make it about the money, even if it is about the money. But what is the reason you want to move into the position? And the world in this case is the company. Why does this matter to the company? How will you be in this new role change the landscape of the company or your department or whatever it is? So think about what's the reason for your empowered ask. Why does it matter to you? And why does it matter to the world? All right, receipts, right? We got to have receipts. And in my case, I'm talking about sharing your credentials and what makes you qualified for this ask. So for me, if I'm talking about being a person who presents great workshops like this, I hope you're enjoying it, but presents great workshops like this, I can say not only my background personally and my experience that I shared with you, but also I've written a book about getting support. Before that, I interviewed 500 women on my podcast about support. Those weren't things that I knew I was going to do, but it started off actually with my curiosity about what does it look like for other folks to ask for support? How do other women especially do it? And for me being an entrepreneur, how do other women entrepreneurs get there? So those are receipts. Those are credentials, right? That's experience. And now, of course, I've spoken at different places, but when I started, it was just my curiosity. And these are the interviews I've done. And this is the writing I've done around this topic. This is why I'm passionate about that topic. Those are receipts. In a case of a business setting, obviously your credentials are the work that you've done or projects that you've worked on or successes that you've had or ways you've shifted the world that you were in, right? Your company or wherever you are, the school you're in. What are the ways that you've either taken a leadership role or the ways that you've contributed to the team? Those are receipts. Now, if you're someone watching and you're just starting out in your career, you might say, well, I don't have, 20 years of experience in media, or I don't have all these interviews and all these other quote unquote big numbers that I'm throwing around here. That's okay. That's okay. You're not off the hook. You have receipts too, because I believe it's just as powerful to say, this is what I've done so far to reach this goal. So for a lot of folks, I think we say, especially again, if you're earlier on in your career, you think, well, I haven't done fill in the blank thing, so I don't have anything. But that's not true. If you're over 5 years old, you've done something, right? You've done something. And if you haven't gotten busy trying to do something to get closer to your goal, I suggest that's the first step. And some of that might be research. It might not be you've met the person who can help you move into whatever position or career, but maybe you've done research on all the schools that offer master's programs in this subject that you're considering, and now you need some help connecting with someone at that school. Again, freestyling, just giving some examples. But what are the things that you've done so far to get you closer to your goal? So either way, or whether you're starting your career, or I should say, if you're someone who's changing career, because I know for me, even though I've worked in media for many years, I've shifted career and started focusing on authoring books and doing workshops and helping this topic that we're talking about here, making empowered asks, feeling supported, and all of these things, which is a bit of a shift from being a magazine editor. Well, I still, again, had to talk about what had I done so far. So those are your receipts. Next, request. Make the request. You'd be surprised how many times people don't know that you need something, or people haven't heard you say, this is what you're working on, or people haven't heard you say, this is why this matters. And we don't ultimately make the request. So I encourage you, if you're thinking about something right now, something that's coming to mind, that's been on your mind that you want to ask, or you want to get support with, or you want to get some advice, or whatever it is, make the request. Go through these 5 R's, and I'll review them again at the end of this, but go through these 5 R's and write down, ready, the reason, the receipts, The request. What is the request? Sometimes we don't know exactly what that, or sometimes the other person, I should say, doesn't know exactly what that ask is. Actually, you know what? I'll correct myself. Sometimes you don't even know exactly what that ask is, but you can say what you believe your goal is. So I do believe sometimes we get caught up in, well, I don't know what to ask. And that's fair. That's reasonable. Again, we're living the question. Actually, if you know me or when you get to know me, hopefully you'll connect with me. But one of the things I say now often is, this is the question I'm living right now. And I'll say what I'm living, whatever that question is, right? It's not always woo woo. Sometimes it's, okay, here's an example. So a couple of weeks ago, I attended a vision board workshop. I do vision board workshops every year in January with this woman named Barbara Bijou. I've been attending it since 2010. So it's been about 12 years. So obviously I believe in the vision board, right? So now she's doing it virtually. We used to go to New York every year and attend it. She did this vision board workshop. And at the end, we were all making declarations of things that we've been putting off or wanting to do and, taking a simple step. And I said, this year I am going to reach out to someone about being an agent, getting an agent, I should say, for me, so that I can be a voiceover talent. I don't know what you all think about my voice, but I've heard good things about my voice and that I should be a voiceover talent for years, especially when I started my podcast. And I'd say, oh, okay, yeah, I'll think about it. Yeah, okay, maybe. And I said, you know what? This year I'm going to try. I know a lot of people in the entertainment industry from my years as a magazine editor. I literally have people that I could call and say, hey, I'm looking for an agent. And then I started also thinking about an agent for some of my work and for my speaking. So I just started thinking, you know what? I want to work with someone who can be a representative for me. I'm living that question. Who's the person that I can connect with? My receipt. So as I said, it wasn't an industry that I had been in before. Yes, I've been in media, but I knew nothing about voiceovers or voiceover talent or how you get bookings and that kind of thing. And then even an agent for speaking engagements and all that. How do you do that? I was living that question. So I sent a few emails to a few friends. Hey, I'm looking for this. Let me know. People didn't know. Some people, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'll keep that in mind. That's a thing too to remember. Sometimes you're making the ask and that person might not be the person to help you, but now it's okay, a little woo woo. It's in the universe, but also you've planted that seed, I should say, in that person's mind. So for example, do you ever think about a certain kind of car that you want or maybe a certain color? All of a sudden, that's the only car you see on the road, right? It's everywhere. Well, that's not exactly true. It's more so that your mind is now focused on that car or that color. The same, I believe, is true with your ask or the question that you're living. And especially when you share it with people who, again, you don't know necessarily if they can help you. These are people who have your best interest at heart. Let's say that. So these are folks that if they say, hey, what's new with you? What are you up to? Oh, right now I'm looking for an agent to help me with voiceover talent, maybe represent me with my new book, my next book, because my agent has retired and gone back to writing or whatever things I'm looking for. So I started saying that for the past couple of weeks. The other day, I posted something on LinkedIn. My friend Lynette Calfani Cox, who is a money coach, themoneycoach.com is actually her website or .net. And she's been on television, CNBC. She's a best-selling author. She and I worked together 2010, also a 2010 person. So for many years, over a course of time, I brought her in on different projects. I always have her speak. She's fantastic. She posted a comment on one of my pictures on LinkedIn. It was that simple. And I said to her, I made the request, hey, let's catch up. I haven't talked to you in a while. I want to see what you're up to. So I wasn't going into it wanting to make a certain ask. I really did want to connect with her because I haven't talked to her since the last thing she did for me was during 2020 when everyone was talking about the PPP loans and all the things, right? She had all that information because, again, she's a financial expert. So I talked to Lynette and she and I were just catching up. She was telling me about what she's doing. She's a new spokesperson for H&R Block and all these other great things that she's doing. And her husband, Earl, is her manager. I've known Earl for many years too. This story is going somewhere, I promise. Known Earl for many years too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so great. I need an Earl in my life because he works with her again as her business manager in addition to being her husband. But I was thinking from the business manager side, he just is so innovative and always connected and helping her get all these speaking engagements and different things. So we talk about all these other things that we're thinking about. And I say, I'm actually looking for an agent for voiceover talent or booking or those kind of things. We go on and talk about other projects and things that we're potentially going to work on. And she says, you know what? Earl now is taking on new clients since her business is where it needs to be. She's been doing it for many years, so he doesn't have to pursue or pitch as many people for her. This is my understanding of what she said. Earl is taking on new clients and building up his agency. So would you? Yes. Okay. before she even finished, yes, I want to talk to Earl because I've seen his work. I know how hard he works for her. I know how smart he is. I know how hard he works for other people. He's building an agency. I didn't know that, but believing in the possibility and being open and having that in my mind, right? Thinking about that red car, whatever it is, having it in my mind, I was primed for that possibility to come my way, that I am looking for an agent, someone I want to work with. I had no idea Earl was starting a business as an agent or taking on clients. He may have already been doing this. And I'm talking to him next week. Made the request, didn't even know, right? Some of the possibilities, but made the request, said what I was up to. She already knows the receipts. I talked about the reason, me wanting to share the message from my book. So hopefully that story makes sense. But this is literally something that happened the other day. And now I'm talking to Earl next week. So you got to make the request. Let people know what you're up to and be ready when they ask what you're up to. And the last part is reciprocity. So one of the things to keep going with Lynette, one of the things I'm doing is having her on my podcast and on a LinkedIn Live. I do a lot of LinkedIn Live videos to talk about love and money, just how she and Earl work together and how other people can work together in their relationships or if they're actually working together in their business. And we've come up with other things that we're going to work on. But the importance of that was reciprocity. So support goes both ways. Listen to the other person with the same curiosity about how you may be able to support them now or in the future. So don't feel pressure like it's an even exchange of you do this for me, I do this for you. Sometimes it's that simple and straightforward, but most times it's, oh, okay, great. I'll think about this, or I'll connect you to this person, or let's stay in touch, or keep me posted. Whatever version of reciprocity is in the circumstance, make sure that you're as open to hearing what you might be able to do for the other person. And it shouldn't, I should say this, it should not be something that weighs you down. Like now you owe this person. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about valuable, honorable relationships that you're establishing with people so that you're in this space. So with Lynette, over the years, it's been reciprocity back and forth between the two of us. Oh, I have this project. This is what I'm working on. I help her by bringing her into a project. She helps me by participating and whatever that looks like. And in most cases, it's business. So there's money exchange. So there's an exchange of that energy, which always feels good. We love the money, right? But either way, we love the idea of sharing back and forth and supporting each other. So just to review, the 5 R's of making an empowered ask: ready, reason, receipts, request, and reciprocity. So I just want to read this quote to you. I got it, cut support off at the pass. It tells the universe to keep it moving when all it ever wants to do is show up for you. And this is actually a quote that I wrote in my book. Yes, I'm quoting myself, but I was trying to think of a good quote for you, and I felt like this was the right one. It cuts support off at the pass. It tells the universe and everybody else to keep it moving when all it ever wants to do is show up for you, right? As the author of The Alchemist says, Paulo Coelho, the universe aspires to support you. I'm paraphrasing that too. The universe aspires to support you, right? So believe that it is there to support you and don't cut it off because of your resistance or even unconsciously cutting off that support. All right, so now I will open it up for Q&A, and I want to mention, I didn't want to forget, a special offer on the book from HarperCollins Leadership, who's my publisher. We thank them very much. Julia will tell you about the link and where to find that, but you'll get a discount if you use the code alumni. I believe it's in all caps, the code alumni at checkout, and you'll get a discount on the book of, I believe it's $3 off. So you can do that as soon as you can. If you want to check it out, in the book, there's exercises around this idea of support. So I'm not just talking about it in theory. It was very important to me. This is why it mattered to me. Very important to me to put actionable steps and exercises in there that you can do immediately to put this support in place and this possibility mindset in place. Also, if you want to learn more about me, you can go to elaynefluker.com. It's just my name. That's my website. And please, please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can do so, obviously, as a connection. Reach out. Let me know that you met me here on our workshop presentation today. Let me know so I can make sure to connect with you. Or you can just follow there if you don't want to go through the whole connection thing. I have it set up so that you can do that as well. But I'm at Elayne Fluker on LinkedIn as well. All right. So thank you all so much. I truly appreciate it. And I hope to hear some great questions from you.
Hi, Elayne.
Hi.
Thank you so much for that. I think we've all been, um, we've all said, I got it so many times.
No, without even thinking about it.
I know I'm guilty of that too. So this was great. I've got a lot of great notes here. So
Excellent. Good.
we do have a question from Alethea. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. How do you cope with asking for help, and especially with people that you think you should ask, but you know that they also drop the ball time and time again?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think it might be Alethea, maybe. I'm not sure. Hopefully, we're pronouncing that correctly. How do you cope with asking for help and people who you think should help drop the ball time and time again? I think you have to ask different people, Alethea. If you have someone that you're asking for support and they drop the ball again and again, I think it's that you're thinking that they should, but obviously they don't have that same commitment to your success or the success of whatever project you're working on. So that's a great question because I do think sometimes some of us may either not ask for support from certain folks or not ask for support at all because certain folks have disappointed us when we've asked them, or we'll think that, well, if I ask this person, they're going to drop the ball. So I'm just not going to ask anybody else. Right. So it creates this idea or this limiting belief that this is what it means. This is why I just do it myself. As we said, having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. There are reasons we all think that. I should have said that. For all of those things, there are probably reasons or experiences that we've had where we think that. But here's the thing, you got to find some new people. That person either doesn't have the capacity to help you, or the skill to help you, or the desire to help you. Either way, it doesn't matter. They're not helping you. Right. And even if I will say this, even if it's someone that's in your family or a friend, you said should there. So I'm thinking the should help makes it feel like it's someone that you would imagine or you hope would help. But again, it's possibility. So I invite you to expand your possibility and think, you don't know where the support is going to come from. So maybe you ask that person or you mention it to that person, but you need other people. And today we're so connected online, social media, Facebook groups, all these other places. We're not as isolated as we used to be before social media. I'll say, I don't know if any of you remember a time before social media. I do. I remember a time before email, but anyway, don't want to date myself. But there's so many ways, what I'm saying, to connect with folks who will be able to support you. And that might be starting off with reading a certain book about it, doing some research online. If it's something urgent, really looking for someone who can more urgently or sooner help you sooner than later. But I think thinking about who are the people who can really help you, who will not drop the ball. Because what I don't want you to do, Alethea, is get disappointed again and again and give up on whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And one of the things I'll mention, just to share quickly about family, I talk about this in the book, and this is something that I learned from this woman I interviewed, Michelle Villalobos, who talked about you got to know the difference between your anchors and your engines. Your anchors are people who, for whatever reason, it might be well-meaning and they love you, or it's family, it's friends, but they want to hold you in place. Think about an anchor. For whatever reason, they weighing you down. They just can't imagine you moving on, moving forward, doing the thing. Maybe it's because they want to protect you. Maybe something that you want to do seems like a big risk to them. So they hold you in place, as opposed to your engines. So I have a business coach, for example, that I've worked with for many years, who is an engine for me. Not only just go get it, you can do it, but let's think about it. Let's talk about it. Let's strategize about it. I also have engines in my girlfriends. Now, all of my girlfriends are full-time corporate chicks or work in all these different industries, government and education, all of those things. I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the risk taker. I'm the one that likes figuring things out, but they support me. They don't have to do the same thing as me. They might not even be able to, quote unquote, help me directly, but their support being an engine, I know I can go to them and talk about things. Lynette, the woman I mentioned earlier, is an engine. My parents, though, are an example. They love me to death. They want to keep me safe, but they are anchors if I talk to them about doing something related to my business that seems like a risk to them, because they are people who worked all of their lives, and thank God they have great pensions and it paid off for them. But for an entrepreneur who takes more risks, they can't process all that. If I say I'm thinking about doing this new thing and this is how much I'm going to invest, or this is how much time it'll take, or whatever changes it'll put me through, they are an anchor. So I don't share things with them about what I'm doing until it's done. And that's whether it worked or it didn't work, because I know they can process the result, but they can't be an engine for me throughout the process. So I hope that makes sense. So one of the things I suggest in the book and suggest to you all now, make a list based on whatever the thing is you want to accomplish, or the goal or the ask, or just in general in your life. who are the people who are anchors. And again, they're not haters. I shouldn't say again, I should have mentioned this. They're not haters. They're anchors. So these could be people who love you. Usually, I think the anchors are people who love you for whatever reason. They want to keep you safe and in place. Write down the anchors. You can't share those things necessarily with those people, or those people, as you mentioned, Alethea, who dropped the ball. They're anchors. They can't handle. You need some engines. And I want your engine list to be longer than your anchor list. So that's what I suggest.
I like that. Anchors and engines. That's good. um, Kamara would like to know, do you think our ego prevents us from connecting with others and asking for support?
Ooh, Kamara, yes, absolutely. You know, I interviewed Tina Lifford, I was going to say Aunt Vi. She plays Aunt Vi on Queen Sugar. And I had the pleasure of interviewing her. I want to say maybe 2019. I don't know if it was 2020, which was kind of a warped year. But she actually said something to really sum up, I think, what you just mentioned. I definitely think it's ego and healthy. And I mean, ego in some ways can be healthy, but in most times it stops us from getting the support that we need. She said that you have to decide if you are in service to your vision or your ego. Okay. When she said that, I mean, I had her repeat it a few times. I've written it places, I've quoted it, etc. But it was such a powerful statement, just like the live the question from Patricia years ago. Are you in service to your vision or your ego? You have to decide, as we said, what matters to you. What's the reason? Does this really matter to you? If so, you will put your ego aside or tell your ego how adorable it is. That's what I do. You're so adorable, trying to make me all scared to ask for support. But I'm going to do this voiceover thing, or I'm going to get this representation. I'm going to try this. You know, sometimes just trying it is the accomplishment, or just sharing it is the accomplishment. So it's not, I suggest, Kamara, that you don't necessarily tie your success to the results. Of course, you're goal oriented. I know there are things that you want to achieve, but sometimes the success, or I will say always, the success comes in you taking the step, you asking the question, you making the ask, right? You sharing your reason, you getting clear on your reason for your vision. We didn't talk about that today, but I'm happy to come back and talk about that another time. But clarifying your vision, getting clear on it, all of those things are steps in the right direction, and they counter your ego and let you be in a place where you say, I am committed, more committed to my vision than to my ego.
That's good. Definitely. Karen would like to know, how do you overcome the hurdle of asking again or asking another when you do not get results with your first ask?
Yeah, Karen, great question. I think, and similar to mentioned earlier, you got to keep going. So when I asked, for example, I emailed talking about this voiceover thing, as you can see, it's on my mind, but really representation thing. I emailed a friend of mine who's, she and her husband are partners in this huge, when I say huge, they've won Oscars. They're just huge agency in LA. I've known her for 20 something years, since I worked in media years ago at Essence Magazine. She's a good friend. She sends my family a Christmas card every year, this glamorous, gorgeous Christmas card. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I sent her a text message saying, hey, I'm looking for representation. I'm thinking here in Georgia, but I guess it could be anywhere because things are remote, et cetera. I did all the ready, reason, receipts, right? Requests, et cetera. And reciprocity, we already have established. But I just sent a quick message. She was that first one that I sent a message to after I did the vision board workshop. I didn't hear back from her. Here's the thing, Karen. I didn't make any assumptions about why I didn't hear back from her. She's a busy lady. I just told you about how busy their agency is. Also, they were just at Sundance. So maybe she was at Sundance when I messaged her. I know she's not a person who would necessarily just ignore me. I don't believe that. Maybe that's the case, but I don't know. And it doesn't matter. But the thing is, again, the success was in the asking. So I asked her, and I asked another person, and I sent a message to somebody else. And someone actually, my mentor from SCORE, if you don't know about SCORE, it's for a organization for entrepreneurs and retired entrepreneurs or corporate people, help new entrepreneurs. Anyway, completely free, SCORE, I think.org. Great resource. But I have two women that I work with. I call them my corporate queens. They both have corporate backgrounds, and I talk to them about a lot of things that I want to do in a corporate space. Anyway, the other day, one of them, Bridget, emailed me and said, hey, I was just watching, I believe she was watching Larry King or something. She's like, I really think that you should get representation so that you can do more hosting and TV and that kind of. I couldn't believe it. But again, I can believe it because that's how I live my life. right? I've been talking about this representation. I had not said it to her and to Jean as the other woman. I hadn't mentioned it to them yet. I probably would have. But the fact that she just emailed me and said that, and I told her, you know what? I actually am looking for someone. So if you know of anyone, and you know what she said, Karen? Oh my goodness, I'm so glad to hear that. I don't know of anyone, but I'll keep that in mind. That is a win. She doesn't know of anyone right now, but the seed is planted and maybe she will come across someone, or maybe she'll see something on television. You know, it's not always, again, right? We're letting go of the how. It's not always you ask me, I know someone, I can connect you to someone. It's not always that direct or transactional. It really is putting it out there with people, again, in your circle, or doing the work and the research and those kind of things. So you're in motion. People want to get, I say, on a train that's in motion, right? They don't want to see you sitting still, not pursuing that thing, or not even thinking about that thing, or asking the question, or making this request, whatever that looks like. You need to be in motion, not just busy for busy's sake. I hope you all know what I mean when I say that. But if you come to me and you say there's something you want to accomplish, or say you want to be a writer and you want to work in media, I'll say, oh, great. What kind of things have you written so far? If you say nothing, it's like, okay, well, writers write. That's the thing about writers. And it's not that it has to be published yet, or, you know, all these other things that we put on. It has to have gotten 10 million likes on social media. Do you write? Do you take time every day to write? What are you doing as a writer? Are you contributing somewhere? Plenty of places now will accept your work for free. So that actually, when I started, there was no way hardly to get into publications unless you talked to an editor and went through a process. Now there are so many platforms where you can contribute your work in so many places. So again, that's just an example of how you have to keep asking, keep being in the space of asking and receiving, right? So it's not just to say you're just asking for help arbitrarily and that kind of thing. As you can see, it's very thoughtful, it's very intentional. But again, you ask and ask again, because you don't know where it's going to come from. So in this case, it didn't come from my girlfriend who lives in LA, whose husband literally has an agency, or they have an agency together. It came from Lynette, who posted a comment on LinkedIn, and her husband, who's very smart, and I'm just so excited to talk to him if you can't tell, is starting an agency. Boom. So that's that answer.
That's great. Thank you. We have another question. Do you have any recommendations on how to learn to find the right support systems for individuals, like how to network essentially for those of us who are new to the game?
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's an excellent question. I think as I mentioned earlier, there's so many groups out there that are specialized in whatever your interest is. I don't know if the person could tell us exactly what the interest is. I probably can be more specific, but just generally speaking, look at Facebook groups, look at people that you can follow on LinkedIn, especially if you're looking from a business standpoint. Even on Instagram, I do searches or come across people whose work I like, or who I'm interested in. This woman I mentioned earlier to Julia and Frederick in the background, the illustrations that you see here in this presentation is this woman, Lenny Kaufman. I didn't know she was a woman. I saw her name on the illustrations as I was finding them or sourcing them. Who is Lenny Kaufman? I looked her up. She's this woman, this incredible artist, and she has all this great work, and I'm obsessed with her. And I contacted her on Instagram, and I sent her a note just to say, I really love your work. Keep creating. That was a little bit of a connection there. It wasn't, I'm not doing it for anything. I'm not asking for anything. I'm able to use her images. I downloaded her images, etc. But this was an example of just creating a little connection there. So there are a lot of ways that you can create connections based on your interests. Again, if it's some kind of group that you want to belong to, or a group that exists already, there are a lot of meetups, especially virtually now. I think now is a great time to get involved with different groups, because you don't have to actually go someplace for even a conference, a presentation, to hear an author speak, or there are a lot of ways to do so much of that virtually. But I would suggest, if you're just starting out, start there, and then it'll expand from there. Also, something that I mentioned in the book, but again, I heard on a podcast, I heard it on the James Altucher show, the podcast I listened to. And this gentleman, Jordan, I want to say Harbinger, was on the podcast. I believe in name propping. I like to give people credit for their, not name dropping, name propping, give people credit for the information that they share. But anyway, Jordan was on the podcast. He was talking about, as you are, networking and making meaningful connections. He said, when you are, say, standing in the line at Starbucks, or, you know, wherever you are nowadays, where you're just sitting idly waiting for something, and maybe it's a time that you usually would scroll on the gram, or, you know, just check out your messages, or do something that's not necessarily productive. It might be good to pass the time. Go into your text messages and send a text message to someone who is a business connection or someone that maybe you spoke on a panel or you saw them at a panel, or even if it's someone you don't know personally, maybe it's like it, for me, for example, reaching out to this woman, Lenny, via Instagram message. It was easy to find her on Instagram, followed her, sent her a message. She might respond, she might not, but go in there and send a message. If you know the person, say you haven't spoken to them for a while, hey, Jordan, haven't talked to you a while. Hope all is well with you. Just checking in. Tell me what's new with you. No rush. I know you're busy or some version of this. No rush to respond. Just want to see what you're up to. Send a text. No obligation. You've put it out there so they don't have an obligation to get back to you. No rush to respond. I know you're busy or whatever version of that, but you've made that connection. You're keeping your circle alive and activated, and you're asking, what are the ways that I can support you? Now, you're not going to, this isn't someone, I would suggest not sending this to someone who is, say, you're not going to send this to your intern, because there might be 10 million ways that you can support them, right? I'm not saying don't connect with them, but say you're sending this to someone who is maybe a peer or someone that you can grab coffee with. So like with Lynette, she posted a comment on my LinkedIn. I said, hey, we should get together. We went offline and we got together. We arranged that and we talked a few days later. So these are the ways that you can, again, connect with either people you know and maybe you haven't talked to. This isn't, your girlfriends or your guy friends or your friends, because you guys can chat about anything forever. These are people that, again, you might have some business relationship with, or you might have met them before and you just have them in your phone. Or, as I said, it's someone on Instagram who you follow, you like, you admire for all the positive and right reasons. And you reach out to them, send them a message. I love your work. I'd love to know what else you're up to, or whatever version of that you want to do. Those are ways to start building your network and making those connections without feeling, you don't feel obligated to that person and they don't feel obligated to get back to you. But again, it gets you in that habit of asking for support and making connections.
Great. Another question from Karen. I think it's a different Karen. How do you get clarity about what to ask in the context of shaping up your career? For instance, you have a financially rewarding job. It's stable and reputable, but somehow you're just feeling stuck in a rut.
Yes, thank you, Karen. I think this is an important exercise I've done before, actually just last week with some leaders at H.P. This idea of clarifying your vision, getting clear on your vision. So I'll share with you a quick synopsis of that. One of the things that we did is based on the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, I think his name is. It's literally called The One Thing. Some of you may have heard of it, but the quote in there that I really like, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it is, what's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? I'll share again. What's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else might become easier or unnecessary? So I think when you're creating your vision, Karen, and maybe it's something outside of your work, maybe it's not in your, in the current job, you have a financially rewarding job. You go, girl, got a financially rewarding job. I think that's awesome. You want to make sure that you have that peace of mind, because financial stress is very real. But then you're looking at something, maybe it's something outside of your work that gets you unstuck, right? Or that fulfills you, or that makes you excited. So if you thought about what's the one thing that you might be able to do to help you get unstuck, maybe there's a course you can take. Maybe there's a certificate. Maybe there's, and when I say course, it might be something related to your job. It might be something totally separate. Maybe you want to look at starting your own business. I always tell, especially women, and especially two especiallys, if you're a single woman and your income, or you're the primary, not even if you're single, if you're the primary breadwinner in the family, start a business while you have your job. I'm not saying cheat on your job, but start a business while you have your job, because again, the financial stress and strain of trying to make your business do the thing, take care of everybody or just take care of you, would be a lot. So if you have a financially rewarding job and you have an opportunity to do something else, whether it's starting a business, a new hobby, or anything, why not think about that? Why not consider that? And then think, what's one thing I can do that might, I don't know if it will, but it might make everything else easier or unnecessary. For me, that one thing was, I'll just reach out and ask people about representation. That will make finding opportunities, whether it's voiceover or commercials or speaking engagements, which is really what I'm focused on, and workshops, it will make my having to do all that research and find the places and get in touch with people, it would make that unnecessary. And it would certainly make keeping the flow of opportunities and possibilities easier. Right. So that's an example. So I would definitely say, think about what can you do, what might be something you can do, and don't just limit it to your job or your position. And you can journal about this. I'm very big on journaling. This isn't a journal, but I always have a notebook nearby and a pen in case something occurs to me or comes up. But journal about that. What's something, if I could just imagine a world, Karen, if you could just imagine a world, what would be something that you might be interested in doing? And then what's one thing you can do that could move you closer to that possibility?
That's a great advice there.
Mm.
Another good question from Haj Shirley. Could you share a bit about imposter syndrome and how this, in addition to ego, gets in the way of an empowered ask and risk taking?
How imposter syndrome gets in the way of empowered ask.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for that question. I do think imposter syndrome is something that I think we have, as a society, have adopted. I can't remember who. I used to know the name of the person who first mentioned it. I believe it was a psychologist. We have to remember, I believe that sometimes we lean into imposter syndrome, or this idea, I should say, of imposter syndrome, as opposed to looking at what might really be going on. So there's a great article, and I interviewed the woman who's the co-author of it in the Harvard Harvard Business Review, and I believe it's called "Stop Telling Women They Have Imposter Syndrome." Definitely check it out. It's a fantastic article, but it speaks about some of the things that happen in corporate spaces, for example, where women might have quote unquote a reason to believe that they are not as smart or performing as well or not acknowledged as often as men in organizations. So I don't want to make this a gender war or anything, but I think that's true for all of us when it comes to imposter syndrome. There are a lot of times things in place systematically, embedded in our culture and in corporate and a lot of spaces where there could be a reason that we feel we're not enough, or we're not smart enough, or we're not accomplished enough, and all of those things. So that's one thing, just to be aware of that. I think one of the things I definitely encourage people to do is to be aware of where might this be coming from. Maybe you don't know for sure. So as I mentioned earlier with me and this idea of support, I had to go back and say, first I had to realize I was sort of like this, I got it about support, and then thinking, I wonder where that comes from, and then exploring that and being open to that. Oh, it might be, maybe it's not, maybe it's something else. But what I remember of my life is always witnessing crises when it was a support associated, with support. So this is this belief that I developed about support. So I think doing a little bit of examination about why you might be feeling this way, if you feel like imposter syndrome is something that's getting in the way, where is this coming from? Is it imposter syndrome? Is it something else? Could you need to, or could you want to or desire to get some more skills and things, certificates or whatever it is in a certain field? I'm not saying you have to do that before you move forward, but maybe that desire is there. That's something that's in your mind that you want to do, and you haven't done that. So you don't feel like you're ready for whatever this opportunity is, or you're ready to ask for the support. And again, I would encourage you just to remember that people want to see you in progress. So don't feel like you haven't done enough or whatever the thing is yet, so you can't ask for support or you can't ask for whatever that next thing is. If you're in the process, you're pursuing it or you're researching it or whatever that looks like for you, make the ask. Be open, fill in the blank, right? Or leave the blank. It's okay that there's a blank there. Let's be okay with, again, living the question. But these are the things that I'm doing to support my vision. These are the things that I'm doing or choosing to do, as opposed to giving into imposter syndrome. Lean into your power. Know how powerful you are. Know how accomplished you are. Again, whether you're starting out or you're well into your career, or you're changing your career, or as I believe it was Karen mentioned, you're in a rewarding career and now you're thinking maybe there's something else, whether it's career or personal or somewhere else for fulfillment. It's okay to want to evolve and change, but please don't give into the idea of imposter syndrome. And I'm not saying it's not real, but again, examining, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling this way? Is this about me? Is this about how the system is set up? Is this society? What is giving me these cues or signals that I'm an imposter? How can I counter that? What are things that I can do to make myself feel powerful and empowered so that I can move on in the most confident way and make those empowered asks? I hope that was helpful.
I think that was extremely helpful. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a great explanation. This was a great hour spent and a wonderful Q&A. I'm sure everybody enjoyed it. So I think that we are at the end of our time, though. So if anybody wants to connect with Elayne, please go to her website, elaynefluker.com, connect with her on LinkedIn. And we have the link to her book right below the video, and also the discount code, which is alumni, all in caps. And you can go to Amazon and purchase her books. So thank you, everybody. Please click on rate a program and give us a rating, and also any suggestions of future webinars that you would like to see. Thank you, Elayne, so much for your time.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you.